Welcome to episode 48 of I Thought I Knew How, a podcast about knitting and life and all sorts. I'm your host, Anne Frost, and this episode was recorded on December 5th, 2020. I have some yarn to tell you about, a heads up about a lot of things, a holiday appeal, and then I'm going to close the show with the audio of the interview I did with Terri while I was in Shetland, in case you missed the YouTube version. Let's get to it. Is anyone else going a little bonkers for December? It feels like the thing to do. I know several of you are working on holiday gifts, and good luck to all of you, especially those who are knitting for Hanukkah. Christmas knitters, we have a whole extra week to get our projects done this year. Let's put some kind thoughts out there for our Jewish knitter friends who are trying to get their gifts done in time. Remember, you can always do what my mom used to do and put the unfinished project in a gift bag for the person to open and then take it back to finish it. But it's nice to have it done, isn't it? Aim for done. Good luck, everyone. If you have a calendar for 2021 already, do yourself a favor right now and pull it out and write Start Holiday Knitting on June 1st. You may as well knit your gifts through this summer, and then you can knit for yourself at a leisurely pace through December. Let's do that. Should we do a holiday knitting kickoff this summer? I'm going to think about that. Tell me what you think. Speaking of December knitting, those of you who are doing the Avant knit along with Morehouse Farm should be a few days into it. Avant is the third project from Louisa Harding's Shawls, Wraps, and Scarves that we are doing either as a combined Morehouse I Thought I Knew How knit along or just as a knit along with Morehouse. I have actually finished mine already because I am test knitting the Tansie, which is going to be our first listener knit along starting on January 1st. I will talk about how that's going in a moment, but first I want to tell you about my Avant. Avant is the triangular shawl that starts with a beaded picot and carries on into a beaded lace edging that I think was 8 rows deep. And then from there, you knit the interior of the triangle in stockinette. So you can imagine that as you get moving along, the work goes faster and faster because as the triangle fills in, your rows get shorter. Everyone is so busy through the holidays that it really is a great project because after the initial lace border, it just becomes a soothing knit that you can pick up and work on for 2 rows or 10 rows or whatever you have time for. I actually didn't knit this one in Morehouse. I just redid my office/craft room/recording space, and I need a better name for this room to digress. Let me know if you have any ideas. I want to name it like a house in England. Anyway, I needed to shovel this room out so I could store the yarn I'd picked up recently and make a video recording space, and the size and scope of my stash was bigger than I am comfortable with. I got it all to fit into the space I had, but barely, and only because yarn is smushy. So rather than buying some Morehouse for the Avant, I pulled out some Teeswater lamb yarn from Faithmead Farms. I got this back in May during the first online International Fiber Festival from Faithmead Farms, which is a farm in Wales. I got it because it is a striking blue. I love blue. I love blue so hard. And this blue is like a cross between a standard Crayola crayon blue and an electric blue. Also, I've never knit with Teeswater before, so I wanted to give it a try. Teeswater are a British dual-purpose breed. They grow very long locks, somewhere between 8 to 12 inches, and they grow in very tight curls. And the micron count is in the low 30s, which means it's not super soft. That said, I would classify it as comfortable to wear, maybe just not right against the skin as a base layer. The reason why I pulled it out of the stash for this project, though, is because not only is it blue, and I love blue, but it's also shiny. The sheen on this yarn had me checking the label for silk when it first arrived, but it's just how this wool is. The degree of shine on this yarn had me thinking that I was going to end up with a shawl I'd want for going out for the night rather than to wear to the mall or around the house. It's just lovely. And I thought that with a relatively simple pattern design, the sheen of the yarn would really shine. I'm sorry for that. Let me try again. I thought that the simple pattern design would highlight the sheen of the yarn. I don't know if that's any better, but I'm sticking with that description. If you are doing this knit along, or if you are joining us late, I would recommend that rather than using the 0.6 crochet hook, try a 1.0. The 0.6 was really making it difficult to grab the yarn I was using, and I found I could go as high as a 1.0 and still grab the yarn and get it through the hole in the bead. The shawl came off the needles, and I am thrilled with it. It really does look like a sophisticated piece. I won't be blocking it until after I record, so I'll have to update you on how the Teeswater behaved in the blocking process. I will say that having knit it in Teeswater and been very pleased with it, I also found myself wishing I was knitting it in the Morehouse Merino. The Teeswater, for all its shine and all its bluey blueness, and I really am happy with how it turned out, was a worsted spun rather than a woolen spun, and I sort of miss that lofty feeling of the yarn through my fingers. So I likely will be knitting another one of these in 2021 in some Morehouse 2-ply sport. Erin did hers in lace weight, and it turned out beautifully. But I think if I do it again, I'm going to opt for the 2-ply so I can go up one size in the needles and make it just that much bigger, so it'll keep me warmer. Because as you may know by now, I am always cold. Anyway, if you would like to join in, there is always time. The knit-alongs run on your time schedule. They're always there in the Morehouse Merino flock group. And you can always find Morehouse Yarns at morehousefarm.com. Our first knit-along of the year will be the Tansy Shawl from the same Shawls, Wraps, and Scarves book. This is in the wraps section of the book, but I would call it a capelet. As I said, I'm test knitting it now, and I'm doing this one in the Morehouse Merino 2-ply sport, and it's working up perfectly. I have finished one repeat of the lace so far, and I'm so excited to get this done and wear it. I'm knitting it in the Blackberry, which is a very deep purple shade from Morehouse that I am madly in love with. I went on a hunt for beads and finally found some in Joann's that are called Brown Iris. They are a deep purple as well, but they have sort of a copperish sheen to them. They nearly match the Blackberry, but the shine of them stands out enough to add some sparkle. I haven't gotten the lighting situation worked out in my new office/craft room/recording area yet, so I'm mostly working on it in a gentle low light, and it looks so lovely. Remember parties? I think this is going to be a nice capelet to wear to one of those someday. I'm hoping to have it done by the next episode, or just done enough to confirm the yardage in Morehouse that you'll need to knit it, and I'll update you then so you can order what you need to join in on the knit-along on January 1st. Let's stop for a song. Yay, music! I wasn't initially planning on putting in a song in this episode, but I've spent so much time talking about my Avant that I think we could do with a break. I still have lots to talk about too before we get to the interview with Terri Laura, so we might end up with 2 songs today. But for now, take a moment with me. This is Make It Work from Where's Danny?
Lately I've been feeling different, and you say that there's something missing. I can't control how your mind wanders. All I know is that I'm gonna make it work. Oh, all I know is that I'm gonna make it work. Lately I've been feeling different. All I know is that I'm gonna make it work. Yeah, I know. And you know. Can no one replace the love we share? So why would you wanna leave? Just tell me what I gotta do. There's no one less, that one is you. I'll try again, whoa, but someone like you. All I know is that I'm gonna make it work. All I know is that I'm gonna make it work. All I know, all I know, all I know is that I'm gonna make it work. All I know, all I know, all I know is that I'm gonna make it work. Lately I've been feeling different, and you say that there's something missing. I can't control how your mind wanders, so why would you wanna leave? Just tell me what I gotta do. There's no one less, no one is you. I try and try again, won't, but someone like you, like you, like you. All I know, all I know, all I know is that I'm gonna make it work. All I know, all I know, all I know is that I'm gonna make it work. All I know, all I know, all I know is that I'm gonna make it work. All I know, all I know, all I know is that I'm gonna make it work.
I forgot to mention a congratulations to Sandra, who won the giveaway of my extra Shetland Wool Adventures journal. I hope you enjoy that, Sandra. Between when I record and when this comes out, I'll be picking a winner for the Garth Croft Bresse note cards and tote bags, but the giveaways don't stop there, my friends. I have another. TJ Frog, aka Tanya Ashton Jones, interviewed me while I was in Skye, and that interview came out a couple of weeks ago on her podcast, which is called the TJ Frog Podcast. I love listening to Tanya's podcasts, so I do hope you will check it out. While we were visiting, she gave me a set of her note cards and a coloring book for a listener. The images on both spotlight Dorset buttons, which is a heritage craft from Dorset, England, where Tanya is from. I'm going to keep on with the request that in order to enter, you send me an email. So if you'd like to enter to win the coloring book and postcards, please send me an email to ann@familypodcasts.com and put the word Dorset in the subject line. I'll pick a winner on December 12th and contact you for your mailing address. Again, this one's just for those with a U.S. mailing address, but if you would like to look at them, you can find them in the shop section of TJ Frog. Hi everyone, it's Ann jumping in from the future, but from your past, but from the future from when I recorded this, because I gave the wrong website address for Tanya. If you want to see her cards that feature the Dorset buttons and also project bags that she makes and her beautiful yarn line, it is at tjfrog.co.uk. Okay, back to the show. And maybe order some for yourselves. People have been asking me about whether or not we will be doing the Yarn Stash D-Stash again at the end of the year, and my short answer is yes. My longer answer, for those of you who are new to the podcast, is that the Yarn Stash D-Stash started last year as a result of my time in the Philippines. The Philippines has always been a cultural crossroads, and one of the traditions picked up from the Chinese culture is to start the new year with a clean and orderly house. In China, I believe this is done in time for their new year, but in the Philippines, it was done for January 1st. I have kept the concept, but I have put the focus just on our fibercraft stash. I break it down into 14 steps over 14 days so that it is manageable. And we start the day after Christmas, so we actually end up straddling the new year. Despite the fact that it's called the Yarn Stash D-Stash, the point is not to make you feel guilty about your stash or that you need to throw everything away. It's just a cute rhyming name. Really, I want you to finish the process and be in love with your stash. I want you to see your stash and get a reminder of what's there and make sure you still love it all. It is also the perfect time to check it all over, especially if you have a lot of wool in your stash. It's good to go through it at least once a year and look for any evidence of damage and get it in the fresh air and expose it to some light so you can catch any damage and deal with it. Get it all a nice dose of fresh air and a good shake out before you store it again, ready for you to use it. You don't need to buy anything to prepare or pre-tidy your stash or anything. I'm just giving you a heads up so that you know that it's coming up again, and we'll walk through the steps together, especially since I will be releasing another podcast next week, and then I won't be back again until the new year. So if you'd like to join in on the Yarn Stash D-Stash, hop into the I Thought I Knew How Facebook or MeWe groups, or follow me on Instagram, and those are the 3 places where I will post the daily steps. Oh yes, I don't think I've mentioned on the podcast that you can now find me on MeWe, which is a social media platform similar to Facebook, but they do not sell your information or allow any ads at all. MeWe makes money by selling upgrades, so like a special emoji pack on a certain theme, or businesses on MeWe pay like $2 a month for a business account. You may be aware of the fact that Facebook just decided to block me from being able to post to my festival group or the podcast group, and it became clear that I need to find another option to continue to be in touch with listeners who aren't on Instagram. If you are on MeWe, you can find the group there. If you aren't on MeWe, but you aren't happy with Facebook anymore, I can recommend it. I have been pleased with what I've seen. I don't have plans to abandon Facebook completely, but I am very grumpy with them for now. Last thing I want to share with you, Knit New Haven is getting their online store up and running, and I am stalking it like a crazy woman. They are a sponsor of the show, and the shop itself is full of incredible yarns I haven't seen in other shops around me. So I'm guessing that a lot of you haven't seen them either. I know from some of our knit nights that some of you have lost your local yarn store in the last year. I will continue to stalk their site and let you know when the store goes live, and you can decide for yourself whether Knit New Haven will serve as a suitable replacement for what you need. I'm pretty confident in saying it will. In the meantime, remember you can follow them on Instagram as Knit New Haven, and they are happy to handle orders by phone. That is all the stuff I needed to share with you today. I'm going to play you another song and then plug in the interview with Terri Laura, who is a Shetland-based designer, knitter, wool advocate, and teacher. This is one of the interviews I did at Jamieson & Smith, so you may have already seen it on their YouTube channel, and if you would like to watch it instead, I will have a link in the show notes to their YouTube channel, as well as a link to all of Terri's contact info, which includes links to her store where you can find her wool positive merchandise, and her website where you can sign up for lessons with Terri via Zoom. I have had a lesson with her in person about choosing colors for Fair Isle, and I've had another one on Zoom about designing the crown of a Fair Isle hat, and they were both great, so check her out. Before I play you the song and move into the interview, I want to invite you to contact me in the next few days and share a happy holiday memory that you would be happy for me to share in the next episode. I have a story I want to share with you. I was going to share it in this episode, but I decided not to because I thought it would be nice to hear from more than just me about this topic. So here's the invitation to send in a happy, uplifting, funny, or teachable moment holiday experience you would like to share with the community. It can be knitting and wool related or not. This is a podcast about knitting and life and all sorts, after all. You can email it to me as text, maybe try to keep it under 500 words, or just know that I may need to edit it down for time. Or if you'd like to record the story yourself, you can use the voice memo app on your phone, then click the 3 dots next to the finish file and choose share, and then click on mail and send it to Anne at familypodcasts.com. Try to keep recordings under 5 minutes if you can. I love hearing people's holiday stories. So if you are willing to share, please send those in to Anne at familypodcasts.com, and I'll try to include as many as I can in the next episode. I will need them by December 11th, which is extremely short notice, I know. If this works out, next year I'll give you some more warning. This song I'm going to play for you before we go into the interview is a Christmas ballad. And it's what reminded me of the Miracle of the Dresses, which I will share with you in the next episode. The song itself does deal with the passing of a spouse, and I know that might be too tender for at least one of you who is listening, so I will share that this song is 4 minutes long, and I will talk a little bit longer now to give you time to skip through it if you like. Hang in there, friend. I'm thinking of you. The song is called Christmas Joy, written by songwriter Louis Yolin. Unfortunately, I'm not sure who he had sing it for him, because I really like her voice and I'd like to hunt her down in some other songs, but those are the breaks with a Louis Yolin song, I'm finding out. I know he wrote them, but I don't know who he gets to perform them. Anyway, here is Christmas Joy, and I will see you again on the other side of the interview with Terri Laura.
The year's first snow brought me back to a Christmas time when all we had was nothing and everything. 5 years ago on Christmas Eve, a little girl was sitting on the floor of an old apartment watching the snow fly. She said, Mama, Mama, listen, Mama, can you hear that sound? Is it Santa? Has he come to bring me all the toys I wanted all year round? You think he'll find me? Her mama looked at her and said, Baby girl, you ought to know that times are tough this year. But don't you be afraid that Santa won't find his way here. 'Cause it's not about the presents, no. It's not about the toys. It's how you fill your heart with Christmas joy. That little girl got up and kissed him all goodnight and went to bed. And as she left that little girl, she saw her mama close her eyes, wipe her tears, and turn her head. That little girl went to her bedroom, got down on her knees to pray. She said, Lord, I know my daddy is up there with you to stay. Can you give him a message for me? Can you tell him that I said, Daddy, I'm sure you know that times are tough this year. But I am not afraid that Santa won't find his way here. 'Cause it's not about the presents, no. It's not about the toys. Can you just fill Mama's heart with Christmas joy? On Christmas morn, that little girl found her mama by the tree. She ran to her daughter, picked her up, put her on her knee. She said, Baby girl, I love you more than anything. Your dad was in my dream last night. Do you know what he said to me? He said, Baby girl, oh baby girl, times were tough this year. But don't you be afraid that Santa won't find his way here, no. Our daughter don't want no presents, no. She don't care about the toys. She just wanted to fill your heart with Christmas joy. I'm always here for you, my Christmas joy.
Hi everyone, I'm Anne Frost. I'm the host of the knitting podcast, I Thought I Knew How, and the online International Fiber Festival. And I am here at Jamieson & Smith this week doing some interviews with some of the designers and crafters and makers on Shetland. Today I am here with Terri Laura, who is a designer and a teacher and a wool advocate. Thank you, Terri, for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
So we need to talk about something before we start, because you have undergone a name change recently.
Yeah, so I was Terri Malcolmson, and just a few weeks ago I got married, so now I'm Terri Leask, but my business is Terri Laura, so that can just stay the same.
Yeah, so, and it's always been Terri Laura, right? It's terrylaura.co.uk.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah. So, okay, so just so everyone knows, Terri Laura, we'll leave it at that.
Any of them is fine, I'll know that you're speaking about me.
Yeah. So you started knitting at a young age. Do you want to tell us how you learned?
Yeah, so we had knitting classes in school, in primary school. We had them every week as part of the curriculum as well. So we'd have a visiting teacher come in and teach us the basics. And once I picked up some of that, I was able to move on we started with toys, and then we moved on to Fair Isle and lace if we were particularly interested and we were moving through the projects like that. So I did do a little bit of Fair Isle and a little bit of lace at primary school as well. And then when I finished primary school, we didn't have knitting in secondary school. So at that stage I was spending more time with my grandmother and picking up more traditional techniques as well. Learning the knitting belt with my grandmother as well, because we didn't have the knitting belt at school. We used shorter needles.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I was able to learn the knitting belt with her, and then years later I picked up the machine too.
And Wilma Malcolmson is your grandmother. She's this year's Shetland Wool Week patron, and next year's as well. So that's really neat. So you started as a hand knitter in school, and then began learning from your grandmother as well. When did you start designing?
I started designing after actually taking a break from knitting and coming back to it. So
interesting.
In kind of later secondary school, and then when I started going into work, then I wasn't really knitting at all. Just as a teenager, different priorities, I guess. And then when I was working full time, I picked it up again because I really wanted something more creative and just a hobby to work on. I was working in a bank, so it wasn't very creative or colourful in that way. So it was when I got back into it, then I started making things that I wanted for myself, and then also things for gifts, and it just grew organically from there.
And you mentioned that you knit as well using the knitting machine, and I think a lot of people don't realize that Fair Isle work can be done on the knitting machine, because I know in the States the knitting machines that we're exposed to generally are very basic ones. They do knit, purl, and you can do some cabling work and things like that, but not a lot of color work on the basic level ones. But there are specialty ones that do Fair Isle knitting.
They actually look much the same. If you're looking at the knitting machines to try and figure out if it does Fair Isle, or all we're looking for is that kind of slot where the punch card goes in. That's the only main difference when you're looking at it. Maybe a few more dials on the carriage as well, but they all look quite similar in that way.
So that's really interesting. I didn't realize that they ran on a punch card system. So are you manually punching out the holes? Wow.
Yeah, so before you start, then you have to make your punch card and punch the holes. Similar to how you would colour in a piece of squared paper to chart out your Fair Isle, then you do exactly the same, but you're punching circular holes in a punch card with your motif in there, and it runs through the machine. It's very manual. Even though it's a machine, nothing happens unless you're turning a dial or pushing the carriage or doing something.
So you're controlling the color as you're actually knitting it, but the machine is using the holes in the punch card to decide which ones get knit in that color? Okay.
Yeah, so you have to manually place the colour inside the carriage. It's when you pull the carriage across, then it picks up from the punch card if the needle which colour the needle needs to pick up, and knits with that one just in that repeat. So we're very limited to a 24 stitch repeat.
Okay.
You can't have different repeats going across the same row. It's only just what you've got in your punch card repeated for as many stitches as you've pushed forward to use.
Okay. So has your use of the knitting machine affected how you design your work then?
Yeah, definitely. So everything that I design, I start with in 24 stitch repeat, so that I can easily transfer it between hand knitting and machine knitting. It's very common if I say was hand knitting a pair of gloves and someone will ask if I can make that in a jumper. So to save the work on that transfer, it's good to have it designed in a way that you can use it wherever. And that's just a tip that I picked up from my grandmother as well. It just saves time, and you kind of have these rules that you're trying to follow, and we can change it if we're trying to get a really specific design, but the original kind of mindset when we go to it is 24 stitch repeat.
Okay. So you're also a teacher. When did you start teaching?
I started teaching a few years ago along with my grandmother. It was something that we were getting asked for, or she was getting asked for quite a lot, and I knew that it was to be something I would enjoy. She was still building her confidence, so we agreed to do it together. And then it was 3 woo weeks ago, that I taught my first class on my own, so that was really exciting.
And was that your color blending class? I'm just guessing.
I think the first class that they scheduled was actually a hat class, but I know I did have a color blending class in that same week. It was just they were spreading.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, things have had to change this year because of all the COVID-19 issues going on in the world. And you've actually taken your teaching online. What classes are you offering?
So I've been offering 3 classes all throughout the summer, and I've included these Wool Week editions as part of that as well. So I've got a swatching class, which is all about organising colours and trying them out and figuring out what works before you start knitting. So we're speaking about knitting swatches as well as other types of trying things out. I've also got a class about mitts as well, and a class about the crown of a hat.
How has having to teach online changed your approach to teaching?
It's quite different because I don't have any control over the materials that the students have. We're taking an approach very much of using what we've got at home, especially since we were in full lockdown when I started doing this. I wanted people to really look at what they already have and find ways of using that. So being quite flexible in the beginning to figure out what everybody has in front of them, and I encourage them to let me know if there's anything they really don't have, and I can adapt the session to make sure that we don't need everything, but we still get the discussion of that in for when they do go to do whatever technique or testing that was. So that's one thing. Another thing is trying to keep track of everybody. It's easy in a room because you can keep walking around and making sure everybody is on track with what they're doing. But online, it's much more a case of if they've got their camera on, watching the facial expressions and just making sure everybody is looking happy and looking like they're understanding what you're saying. I don't press people to use their cameras though if they don't want to, because it's online. You don't want to make people do anything you don't want to do.
Yeah.
So we also have the chat box open that they can type questions in, and I'll always be asking them how are they getting on, to give them a chance to give some feedback if I've not heard them say anything for a while. And also they can just speak, so just use their microphone too.
Okay.
And I'll keep checking in with everybody.
Yeah, so it's people definitely have different comfort levels as far as having to be online.
Yeah, which is fine. You can totally respect that.
Yeah. So I had heard you say before that one of your favorite things to do is to teach about color. And we have your color book here with some of your colorways that you've come up with. Where do you draw your inspiration from when you're designing a colorway?
So I would say they're all very different. For example, this one that I'm wearing was something that I just wanted to own. So this was the first jumper I ever knitted on my knitting machine. And so I figured out the colours, just something that I thought would suit me and something that I wanted to own at the time. And other colourways have maybe come from making something kind of in a similar way but for somebody else, something I think they would suit or would go along with other things that they wear. But I kept doing that over and over, and so I tried something different, which was which was taking the colours from a photograph to show people that I can make things to match other things if they wanted, and that really opened the doors for me to make things like cushions for people's living rooms to match their interior design. And I really like interior design magazines and that kind of inspiration too. So I really like to just draw inspiration from as many different places as possible. But I'm definitely a people person, so that's a huge part of it.
Start with their interests, their colors, their color preferences, and build from there.
Yeah, it's such a good feeling when you can produce the exact thing they were looking for.
Yeah. What are some of the positive aspects of being able to teach people online?
There's been a few things that I didn't really think of, and the main one being able to connect with people who, for whatever reason, wouldn't be able to get here otherwise. So, especially now, there's so many reasons people can't get here.
Yeah.
And especially during lockdown when I started, but things like people who really rely on these online resources, maybe they don't leave their small town or their house very much at all for a range of reasons, they're getting a chance to be part of this community more in person and meet other knitters, which has been so nice. Maybe people who also are working from home right now, they would come on the class in their lunch break, and that was just so nice that they, like me, were feeling quite isolated, staying at home all the time. So to have a conversation just about something different and something more leisurely and fun, I could see that they were enjoying that, and I really got that feedback too.
Yeah.
I was one of these people who I was going crazy in lockdown when I couldn't see many people, so I really looked forward to these sessions to go on. It's just to speak to somebody new and have a conversation and see where it took us.
Yeah, I think we're used to knitting being such a social activity, you know, with meetups and just getting together with friends, and then with the lockdown, I think it was sort of like you can't stop knitters, you know. We found a way, we just moved it online and started having get-togethers and online courses and things like that.
Yeah, I think my now husband was very relieved when I would go on to this because I would give him a break. Because I need people in my life. It really helped doing that for me as well.
Great. I want to go back to your interest in interior design. Because in the annual this year, your pattern is for a cushion.
Yeah.
That's absolutely beautiful. If you could tell us about that.
Yeah, so I haven't actually released a pattern for a cushion myself before. My grandmother has some, but I wanted to do something just a little bit different, as usual. And I had this cushion with two different faces. And although the faces do match, they are completely different in that one is an all-over pattern that just completely covers one face of the cushion, and the other is the same motif but more spread out across the central line, with some little extra details surrounding that too, but with two large plain sections. So I kind of used this Wool Week opportunity to speak to the tech editor and figure out what's the best way of doing this. So that was really helpful, and I really got a chance to create something that had a lot of different aspects that people would like. So maybe some people would prefer one side and some people would prefer the other side. It's also something that you can be the colour work can be as complicated or as simple as you want. You could do just two colours, and it would be really effective. You could have, I think mine has got about 9 colours in there. So yeah, just to show people what you can do, and it's to give people a real chance at working out their blending as well, because it's just the same shapes repeated and staggered. So you don't really get a break in the motifs. It's just constant ferrule all the way up. So your blending needs to be quite smooth. So I'm getting people to really look at the colours they've got. Some of the colours that are within, especially the heathered colours, and try and find those in others to have really gentle steps in between. So I'm really excited to see what people choose, which colours they choose to go with, and what they do with the pattern as well.
Yeah, it's so fun. I love that we have Ravelry in our lives now, you know, because it's such an easy way to go and see what other people have been how they've been playing around with the patterns.
Yeah.
And it is such a great pattern to be able to experiment with because the background is all the same color.
Yes.
So you're really just concerning yourself with the blending through the pattern stitches, through the motifs. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've kept the background really simple so that you can have a really effective foreground. But again, you can change that yourself if you were going to knit it too. So I'm really excited to see what you can do.
So another reason why I wanted to have you in today to chat is because I'm really in love with a project that you launched several months ago. You and your friend Julie Dennison, who's the illustrator, came up with 12 amazing benefits of wool and designed some illustrations to go with them. They're very pithy, quick, get the facts out there messages, and then Julie designed some lovely little illustrations about them. What was your goal in this project?
Yeah, I really wanted to just put across the different uses that wool can have. We use wool in Shetland for very limited reasons in comparison of what they could be used for. So I wanted to just make something that was really attractive, and Julie was the perfect person to get on board to do that. I just love all of her illustrations, and just show all the different reasons you could choose wool for different products. So things like the naturally flame retardant is the one that I seem to bring up first most of the time, because you could really use wool in your home much more and feel much safer about it. I did actually, because I know the last time we were having a conversation, I didn't have the figures with me, so I did look it up for you today. And so I found out that to ignite wool, then the temperature needs to be 570 to 600 degrees Celsius, which is 1060 Fahrenheit. So it's a lot. You can't even imagine that heat, really.
Yeah.
So in Shetland, there is cases of people in the past who have burnt their wool because the price just wasn't very good for it at the time. But it must have been a struggle.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this.
Well, I know that's one of the things you can do when you're testing the fiber of a mystery yarn, is you can do the burn test, and that's one of the aspects that tells you if it's wool, is if it just sort of, it will light while it's in the flame, but then it just smolders when you take it out again, and that's one of the signs.
Yeah, that was some of the extra information I have about that one, is that it doesn't spread.
Yeah.
It needs a lot to keep it going. It will soon go out. And another important one, especially if we're speaking about homewares or materials or fibres that we're using, is that wool, when it's hot, it doesn't drip or melt or stick.
Yeah.
Which means that it just is so much safer if anything was to happen, if there was any kind of fire, then it's not going to be harmful afterwards with that hot stickiness that you can get with other materials. So that's something that I find really important.
Yeah, and it's still used by various professions for that reason. As firemen and electricians and things like that, they'll use wool-lined things or wool items to help keep themselves safe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing because it doesn't seem like that should be the case. You know, you think about cotton and wood and natural things and that they burn, but wool really resists that. Yeah.
And it's something that, we would kind of classify it with all those other materials, but it is almost the opposite in the best way. Because we really have to think about how many reasons wool has to keep the animals safe as well. And that would be one of them. You wouldn't want, any disaster.
You don't want the sheep combusting in the field.
Of course, you want to be insulated and safe, so thank goodness for that one.
What's another one that really surprised you?
One that surprised me, but I'm not sure why, is how sustainable, eco-friendly and biodegradable. So the fact that when wool is out in the fields and among the soil, then it can completely biodegrade in about 3 to 4 months, which is surprising when we're thinking about garments, because we wouldn't imagine if we put them to the landfill or something like that, that they would be able to just completely disappear in such a short time. But when sheep are walking around here in Shetland and it's almost clipping time, there's always wool left on the fences or in bushes where they've brushed past, and we don't think about that as litter, and we don't expect it to stay there for years later. So that's why I wasn't sure why I was so surprised with that one. But I think it is an important one. And the fact that when it does kind of disintegrate, then there's so many nutrients within the wool still that helps nourish the soil that it's going into as well. So it's all positive.
Yeah, and in fact, some people will go so far as to use their clippings as fertilizer. Yeah, because it will disintegrate into the soil and bring the nutrients that the soil needs.
Yeah, it's really a big one. I've seen in Shetland people asking for it for their polytunnels as well as something that's really, because Shetland is so windy, we don't have a lot of trees to shelter, then polytunnels are really popular to keep an area warm and keep the wind out. So for people to be putting that in this really well curated space where they've got all their things growing is really shows you how much it can help.
Yeah. Any others that you want to draw our attention to?
Well, the supporting local crofters and their families, as well as the clipping is good for the sheep, are two that are really close to my heart for obvious reasons. Growing up on a croft, having sheep in my life every year, it's two that are so important to mention. I really wanted them near the top of the poster. I don't think I even told Julie specifically to do that, but she got my vision right away. So that's really important. And to think how if we can increase the demand for wool, it will have a positive effect on the crofters the very next year. So it's really important to just keep an eye on where your fibres are coming from. And obviously, I'm not going to tell everybody to buy everything from Shetland because that's not always going to be local to you. But whatever's local to you, just ask the question, where does it come from? You'll find that you hold it a little bit closer to your heart when you have that information as well. So I think that is an important one.
Yeah. So you have this here as a tea towel, but you have it on other forms of merchandise that people can purchase and have at home or in their office.
So initially we made A4 print, so that's available on the website, and then I've been adding products from there, just that people mentioned and a few that I liked, so I curated to make sure I got the coaster with the cork on the back and the very specific. So we have coasters and we have kitchen mugs as well as camping mugs. And we have these large tea towels, and then you can also get the individual points if you have a favourite on a smaller tea towel as well.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know about that one. I didn't know. I got to check out the store, obviously. And these are available at terrilora.com. Right? The store is .com.
Yeah, so my web shop is terrilora.com, but everything, if you go to terrilora.co.uk, everything can be linked from there.
Okay.
So that's the main one.
Okay.
And I've also done a little bit of writing on each of the points, just with a bit more information. And that's terrilora.co.uk/wool. But again, there's a wool clickable if you go to just terrilora.co.uk.
I'm very glad that you mentioned that because, as I mentioned, these are very just quick, get the information out there. But Terri has done an excellent job on the website. Basically, it's not organized like separate blog posts, but it's basically like a blog post about each of them. For each that goes into more detail about that. And if people have an interest in learning more about them, do you have a resource that you recommend for people?
Yeah, I've really just been searching online and asking around. I had a few books as well, but I'm trying to kind of find the ones that were most helpful and narrow it down and let people know about those too. But in the UK we have the Campaign for Wool, which is a huge campaign, and they have their social media pages and their website full of information. And I would really recommend looking at that if you are interested in wool in general. They've got so much.
Yeah, and I know the Campaign for Wool has actually given Jameson and Smith some of their videos to use during Virtual Wool Week, so those will be coming out on the same channel.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so that's an easy way to do that. And of course, one of the main patrons of the Campaign for Wool is Prince Charles.
Charles, which yes,
So
gets
we're pretty
people
fancy.
That's so true.
What has the reaction been like for your project?
It's been really, really nice. We launched this again during lockdown this year, so people were really happy to be learning about something different, seeing something different online, and something positive and colourful. And Julie's just done such a great job. It was just a really good conversation to be having. People have been really good at letting me know which one is their favourite, and all different reasons. This one, the mainly sourced locally picture, children love it because they think that the sheep is going to jump over, which I just think is the best thing. So I've had a few that love that one. Knitters love the socks. So there's just loads of details that's just put in there, and the facial expressions are just hilarious as well. So it's just been a really cheerful project to do. People have really taken on the information. I'm still just in the stages of bringing it up every now and again. It's, we need to hear things a few times before we remember it. So trying to keep getting the information across. But yeah, there's so much more I could do with this. So I'm just seeing what else is to come as well.
Yeah. And do you think that you might add to the list with additional illustrations down the line?
Yeah, there's certainly things that could be added. I've not decided quite how I want to do that, if I want to make it a bigger poster or to add things in a slightly different way. I'm not too sure. But yeah, there's more that could be done certainly. So.
Yeah. Where can people follow you to stay up to date on the developments?
Yeah, well, anything with this project you'll find at terrilaurer.co.uk/wool. That's kind of the main section for this. But anything that I'm doing in general, then it'll be on Instagram. I have a monthly blog post.
And you're Terri Laura on Instagram.
Yeah, and on Facebook. Yeah. So you can find, basically I think Instagram and Facebook is probably the most up-to-date, day-to-day updates that you'll find. So those are the best. But if you are more of a blog post reader, you can sign up to receive them as well by email too. So whichever you prefer.
Lots of ways to stay up to date.
Yeah.
Great. And that's also where people can go to find out when your classes are going to be.
Yeah, so on the main page of the website, there's also a classes part that you can click on to.
Perfect.
So yeah, you can sign up to be the first to be notified when new dates come up as well. So yeah, anything that you're interested in, there's a place on there for it.
Great. Terri, thank you so much for coming in and meeting with us and sharing your amazing benefits of wool and letting us know about your classes that you have available. I will put my support behind Terri's classes. I've had one in person and one online and enjoyed them both. She's a great teacher.
Thank you so much.
So again, thank you for coming in, and I hope you have a wonderful wool week.
Yeah, you too.
I hope you enjoyed that interview. Be sure to check the show notes for the links to Terri Laura's sites, as well as the things we talked about before the interview. Thank you, Terri, for speaking to me. It is always a joy, and I look forward to seeing you next year. Do send your holiday stories in print or as a recording to ann@familypodcast.com, and I will be back next week. Thank you for listening and knitting with me for a bit. If you'd like to support the show, please visit patreon.com/IThoughtIKnewHow to make a monthly pledge. You may also consider making a purchase from one of our sponsors by visiting the website IThoughtIKnewHow.familypodcasts.com and clicking the link at the top that says Be a Booster. While you are on the site, you can also find the show notes for each episode. Thank you so much to my patrons, Knit New Haven, and Morehouse Farm for sponsoring the podcast. Find me on my social media accounts as I Thought I Knew How, except on Twitter, where it's just Thought I Knew How. Groups on Ravelry and Facebook are both called I Thought I Knew How Podcast. Until next time, may you be blessed with stitches that never drop, yarn without joins, and plenty of time to knit.